Welcome back to the quest for the Green Bowl, the rise of Azath. This week marks the finish of divisional matchups until week 12. But before we all wander off into the unknown of cross-divisional play, where key tiebreakers will be won in the fight for the playoffs, we have one more group of games that will further shape the narrative. There are 3 division leaders with only one playing a 1-1 team, but there is a possibility that we lose at least one other undefeated team. The longest anyone's ever gone undefeated in this league was 7 weeks when Green Acres started 7-0 back in 2017. The longest winless stretch was former league member Meow Master, who started 0-7 also in 2017. Meow Master also holds the longest losing streak record at 11 games in a row last season, finishing up last season actually. One of the many reasons why the 2-time champ is not in this league anymore. But before we dive into the previews this week, let us first take a trip to the Game of the Week destination taking place in the Europa Division, as the Clash at Demon Head hosts Loki Lebowski Thor at the Swirling Skies at Havard Point.
We hope you get as mesmerized as the being who came here in the past at this place. Like the other moons, Europa's had several visitors throughout its history, with a large ocean underneath the icy crust, which is a perfect place for settlers to come and see. But there is one place on the moon that always has Jupiter seem like it is right above you, swirling and spinning around. This point has become known as the Swirling Skies at Havard Point. Havard is the name that has Scandinavian origins in your human history, but instead it refers to an ancient alien race from Andromeda. This race settled on this moon well to the south of this point after its homeworld was destroyed by another group for reasons unknown. Of course, this group worried that they would be found, so they set up a watchtower, harnessing the magnetic field of Jupiter to find a signal of a potential incoming ship. The individual that was assigned to sit here was named Havard, but something happened next that forced this group to leave Europa. The theory is that they were found, but in reality it was due to Havard itself, who was mesmerized by not just the colorful gases above, but by something present within the magnetic field. Some sort of rogue living energy that entered Havard's head. Havard was first driven to madness before believing that the energy was actually a god. Havard surprised the settlement in a murderous rampage before they escaped once again, but before the last ship left the area, one account said that Havard seemed to meld with Jupiter, disappearing from the moon. But what's really gonna scare the one that has to call this place home right now is that a reconnaissance mission that came back is said to have seen someone sitting at that watchtower. Perhaps it's still Havard, ready to return to a murderous rampage.
In this matchup, we get 2 teams that are looking for an edge in the divisional race, with both sitting at 1-1 overall. Regardless of what happens, one team will be in second and the other will be in third place in the Europa Division. This one is expected to be close, with the Clash at Demon Head coming in with the 55.5% chance to win. The big matchup here is the rare defensive struggle. The Bills' defense is on fire with at least 20 points in the last 2 weeks, and the Bucs' defense just dropped 29 points. Both have solid front sevens. The Bills with 9 sacks, 5 interceptions, 2 fumbles, and a TD, and the Bucs with 10 sacks, 4 interceptions, 2 fumbles, and a TD are some of the most productive units in fantasy, and they both don't give up a lot of points or yards either. A dud by any of these defenses would be tough for the other squad to overcome. One thing to note is that the Bills play a Miami offense that exploded in week 2, while the Bucs play a Green Bay offense that needs to run to win. The edge actually goes to the Bucs for now. Other matchups that will be important are Matthew Stafford versus Justin Herbert at quarterback, with Herbert battling a rib injury, Christian McCaffrey versus Delvin Cook at running back, with both lacking scores so far, and DeAndre Swift versus Deebo Samuel, with both looking like key players with beast potential. But two players, of course, stand out to me as potential X factors. For Lebowski Thor, I turn to running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Edwards-Helaire comes in with a tough matchup on paper, but the Colts also just got beat by Jacksonville. While he hasn't reached the end zone yet in 2022, Edwards-Helaire is averaging 7.7 yards per attempt with 116 yards on the ground. Edwards-Helaire does have 2 touchdowns through the air as well, with 76 yards on 7 receptions, catching every target that's been thrown his way. Despite being beat by Jacksonville, the Colts defense is still solid up front. This is a team that had 33 sacks a year ago, and we all know that one of the ways to slow Patrick Mahomes down is to play coverage and use pressure with the D-line to force mistakes or short passes. Edwards-Helaire might be utilized heavily in that kind of game, and with his big play ability, all it takes is a few broken tackles, and it could give Lebowski Thor a huge boost. On the flip side, he could also fail to reach the end zone if the Colts play good rushing defense. They have only allowed 86.5 rushing yards per game so far. Mahomes is clearly the best quarterback they've played, though, so we'll see if Edwards-Helaire is more of a threat in the passing attack here. Moving on to the host, the clash at Demon Head. I turn to Curtis Samuel, a wide receiver used kind of like Deebo Samuel on the other side here. He lines up in many places on the field and is an offensive weapon. So far in 2022, he has 133 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. He also has 38 yards rushing, and he's gotten targets and carries inside the 10. He also goes up against a Philadelphia defense that has kind of been like Jekyll and Hyde. They allowed 35 points to the Lions and just 7 points to the Vikings, with Darius Slay being a beast with multiple interceptions on Kirk Cousins. Slay will most likely cover Scary Terry McLaurin, might cover Jahan Dotson depending on the situation. That leaves Samuel as someone who can make some big plays in different spots. The Eagles have allowed 121.5 rushing yards per game, although they kind of stopped Delvin Cook. They're only allowing 203.4 passing yards per game, and that's even with the Lions putting up 35 on them. One of the keys, though, they only have 3 sacks, so they're not a team that gets after the quarterback much. What this means is that the Commanders can lean on the run with Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick and use Samuel in key situations as well. If he gets a touchdown, it could change the makeup of this matchup. But if he gets bogged down and loses out scores to McLaurin, Dotson, McKissick, or Gibson, then he could also be a weak spot in this lineup. Regardless of what happens, this matchup should be a good one. I actually expect Edwards-Helaire and Curtis Samuel to have plenty of opportunities to score, and for both teams to get over 100 points here. It should be a high-scoring one. Moving on to the other Europa Division matchup, my first place, Dark Ridge Dreamers look to get a big boost in the division with a road trip to 0-2 Uncle Justy, who is looking to claw his way back after a tough start. With better place than here. This one takes place at my Dreamers' home base, the icy caves of Varangir, and my Dreamers enter with a 66.7% chance to win. This is a rematch of last year's semifinal with my Dreamers, then known as the Great Superior Super Bowls, winning. Of course, Uncle Justy defeated my squad in 2020 in the quarterfinals, so we may have a bit of a rivalry brewing here, especially with our two teams now in the same division. Nick Chubb, Mike Williams, Justin Jefferson, and Kyler Murray look to lead the Dreamers. Antonio Gibson will be big going up against the Eagles defense as well. Uncle Justy needs the Elvin Kamara and Tom Brady of old, and he will look for Jamar Chase to be a beast again. Pittman and Logan Thomas might be key as well. On to the Ganymede division. Remember, the Titans host the Stellar Bitches at the Polar Caps of Atanasu. The Bitches look to rebound after a tough loss to a top-ranked multiple scoregasms last week, while defending champion, remember, the Titans, looks to get his first win of 2022. The computers essentially call this one a toss-up at the moment, with the defending champs getting a 51.8% chance to win. Carson Wentz versus Kirk Cousins, Derrick Henry versus Saquon Barkley, and the Chargers versus Chiefs defense look to be key here. Also, Fournette and A.J. Brown might be big for Remember the Titans, and McLaurin and Dotson could actually be huge for the bitches on the other side. In the other Ganymede matchup, we actually get a battle for first place as the undefeated multiple scoregasms host AR's ayahuasca plant at the secret sea of Galanis. If AR's ayahuasca plant wins and the stellar bitches lose here, then they will take over sole possession of first place. The scoregasms can, of course, get a huge jump start at going for a division title with a win. They might take a 2-game lead if the bitches lose and they win. So a lot on the line here. At the moment, the Scoregasms have a wild 68.5% chance to win, and that's even with James Conner having a bum ankle. Josh Allen, Jonathan Taylor, the sun god Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the 49ers defense are expected to feast this week, while Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones have a very difficult matchup against the Bucs. David Montgomery, Devontae Adams, and DK Metcalf do have good matchups, and they will probably all need to score touchdowns here. Moving on to the EO division, the surprise of Green Acres being undefeated is all with the computers, as this actually shouldn't be very surprising if you've known Green Acres over these last times. Nate Dogg knows what he's doing. But the Siamese Dreamcats' tough 0-2 start is a bit of a surprise, as they seem to be very close here to having a solid squad. The Dreamcats do look to bounce back after last week's Game of the Week defeat at home, and they're back at home here at the Ship Graveyards at Beatrix Lane. And the computer once again throws shade on Green Acres, giving the Dreamcats a 64.7% chance to win. Not sure if Green Acres trusts a Tua repeat against Buffalo or not, but Burrow does have a good matchup to bounce back. T. Higgins and Evan Ingram also have good matchups, and Stephon Diggs will look to build off of a beast performance last week. The Cats, on the other hand, hope to ride Lamar Jackson and Cooper Kupp once again. The Colts do have a terrible matchup, but Goddard, Smith, and Kirk can all change the tide if they reach the end zone. Also, look out for the Pollard over Elliott play here. That could be a brilliant move, or it could bring much sorrow. Lastly, 2 1-1 teams battle with the Elite Mother Tuckers hosting Risky Business at the volcanic plateaus of Vulcan. And we are in toss-up territory with the Elite Mother Tuckers entering with a 51.8% chance to win. Hurts versus Mahomes looms large here, as does Eckler versus Mixon. The Cowboys' defense could be the difference for the Mother Tuckers, and don't sleep on Tyler Lockett. Tyreek Hill does have a tough matchup, so it's unsure if he will have another beast performance like last week. Kelsey Thomas and Dylan scores for Risky Business could absolutely turn the tables as well. It seems to be another fun week with all these matchups. Anything can happen, and with divisional records being a tiebreaker for divisional titles, this is an important week for several teams before the long stretch of out-of-division play. And that's the content for the show, everyone. Hope you had a lot of fun, just like me. On Sunday, the Elite Mother Tuckers will be joining me to discuss his Game of the Week win. Until next time, Salut. And before you go, check out the updated standings before these matches begin.